Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me much pleasure to be here. As you know, this has become more of an annual event now in the lead up to the actual awards night that is in fact held every year to encourage, as the chairman said, and to give impetus to those companies, individuals who are exporting Fijian products to the rest of the world, and those who perhaps are considering doing so. I think it's only appropriate for me to start talking about exports within the MSG context. As you know, the Honourable Prime Minister is currently in Noumea, where he is in fact handing over the chairmanship of the MSG after 2 years to New Caledonia. Within the past 2 years, there has been enormous strides made within the MSG context. In particular, regarding the removal of the many items on the negative listing. The negative listing, as some of you would know, in fact meant that Fijian products were subject to various tariff controls by way of duty imposed on Fijian products. Fiji, in fact, was the only MSG country that allowed goods from other MSG countries to come into Fiji duty-free. And we've been doing that now for years. But conversely, that was not the same for Fijian products. In the past 2 years, though, in particular over the past 1 year, that has significantly changed. So, for example, PNG, which has a much larger population than New Zealand, nearly double the size, or close to doubling the size, has removed all goods from the negative list except 3: sugar, salt, and tuna. Don't ask me why about salt, but the fact is those 3 items are on the negative list. But all the other items are in fact duty-free now. I have, over the past month or so, or in fact a bit more than that, since the removal of the negative list by PNG in particular, spoken to a number of business houses, in particular manufacturers, Fijian manufacturers, who are already making enormous strides. A couple of them are already in fact drawing up plans to build bigger factories, manufacturing plants, because of the enormous potential in Papua New Guinea. There's a population of 7 million or excess of 7 million people. If you recently look at the FNPF investment in Papua New Guinea through B Mobile and using Vodafone management, only appropriate to mention Vodafone, who are the key sponsors together with Westpac for this event. Digicel has been there, it's making very handsome profits. The penetration rate in Papua New Guinea is approximately 35 to 37% only. They use 2G. In Fiji, we're about to launch into 4G. So you can imagine the enormous potential that lies for FNPF and Vodafone in Papua New Guinea. So within the MSG context also, we've got the Solomon Islands that has far more items on the negative list, but we hope in the next few years that it will also diminish rapidly. Vanuatu has reduced a number of the items from the high importation tariffs they had to much lower ones. I think the maximum now is 10%. So there is potential for Fijian business houses, Fijian manufacturers, not just in goods but also services. Fiji has a very well educated workforce comparatively. Most of our people speak very good English, although I sometimes do wonder when we see the quality of some of the lawyers. I thought I'd use our profession as an example first. But on a serious note, there's enormous potential there, and Fiji is very well positioned. As you also know, that the Bainimarama government has recently struck a wonderful partnership with Aitken Spence, which is a world-renowned company, in particular well known for its logistics, operating ports in Africa, in the Middle East, and Africa, and in Asia. And they will soon be managing our ports in Suva and Lautoka from next month. Now this has again enormous potential, not just in terms of making our imports more attractive by way of removing hopefully those levies that shipping companies charge, but also in terms of the exports, the turnaround times of the ports making it a lot more efficient, and with the view of, and when we were assessing these companies, of ensuring that Fiji becomes a transshipment point. So with that in mind, with the number of changes that are taking place within the civil service too, whilst there's quite a lot of work to be done in that area, there has been significant changes being made in as far as government ITC is concerned. You will see by the end of the year a number of important changes taking place, apart from having a national switch that will remove certain monopolies or duopolies, if you like, in respect of electronic transfer of funds or ATM facilities. But in terms of expanding the financial availability of electronic transactions by having a national switch and making it more attractive is something worth looking forward to. Similarly, government services will be improved, where we should by the end of the year have online searches, registration on for companies, for titles, and Investment Fiji has just completed the first phase of having a one window application form where you get approvals from your first tier agencies, which includes Investment Fiji, Reserve Bank of Fiji, Immigration, and FIRCA. They're the key agencies that investors look at. So with those changes, again, it brings about opportunities. And the reason why I also talk about foreign investment in Fiji is because it gives an opportunity for local investors to partner with foreign investors. The reason why we talk about Papua New Guinea and other Pacific Island countries is because we need to take advantage of our geographical location and our far more superior infrastructure, logistical arrangements, and also infrastructure regarding telecommunications. The last point I would like to also mention, ladies and gentlemen, is as you would have seen in many of the areas, whether it's the rebranding of Air Pacific through Fiji Airways, or whether it's through some of the other improvements that have been taking place, for example, HACCP compliance or ISO compliance, and the improvement in standardization, is that Fiji needs to position itself as a source of products, of services that are of high quality, because that is the only way that we will be able to distinguish ourselves. If you talk about the garment industry, for example, we obviously cannot produce the same type of volumes that Bangladesh or China produces. But with the work that the Ministry of Industry and Trade has been carrying out with the Textile, Clothing and Footwear Council, we have been trying to position ourselves as a place where we can produce quality garments, produce in smaller numbers but higher quality, and where people may, for example, want to produce 1,000 pieces of a uniform, and we can do that very well and in good quality and quick turnaround times. So this is the manner in which Fiji can further push itself out in terms of our compliance with standards, in terms of our compliance with employee-employer relationships, in terms of our compliance with the environment. Because if you have the vision, and if we all as a vision, as all stakeholders have a vision in ensuring that we maintain or improve on our standards, then Fiji is well placed. Whether it's Fiji water, whether it's our fish, whether it is our garments, whether it is the quality of other products that we send out from Fiji, we'll be able to distinguish ourselves. Of course, mahogany is one of the other key areas where we see a lot of opportunities in terms of value adding. This is why we've now registered the Fiji Pure mahogany in about 25, 26 different countries. It costs a lot of money to register the trademark in those countries. It's not cheap. But the reason why we have done that is because we are positioning Fiji, we are positioning the Fiji brand. And I think as exporters, as manufacturers, we should all have a sense of loyalty and a pride to the Fiji brand. Tomorrow, before I end off, we are marching through from one end of Nandi Main Tower Street to the other end, where we are in fact promoting the Fijian crafted brand. As you know, we've been working with our manufacturers in terms of Fijian made, Fijian grown, Fijian sewn, Fijian processed, Fijian packaged. We now have Fijian crafted, where we want to push the genuine Fijian made handicraft, not just in terms of the labor input, but also in terms of the material input. So the basket that is weaved, the pottery that is made, the mats that are weaved, they all come from Fijian material. At least I think the threshold is 95%. So we are pushing these sorts of products. We're partnering, for example, with Fiji Airways, they will now show that advertisement, which you will all have the pleasure of seeing on the television sets from Friday evening. They'll push this promotion out in all inbound flights coming into Fiji. And the idea is that we work together with small businesses, with the medium-sized businesses, and of course with the larger companies to be able to showcase Fiji through our products and our services. I'd like to, on that note, thank the sponsors, our key sponsors, of course, Vodafone and Westpac, for their continued support for this Prime Minister's Export of the Year Award, and also the other sponsors who have specifically sponsored the various categories from small, medium, and various specialized areas. It is without your sponsorship, this cannot be held, and we thank you for that. We acknowledge that. We have got some very exciting times ahead of us. And I think as a nation, as a group of business people, as a group of employees and employers, we can really position ourselves and indeed, of course, grow the well-being and prosperity of our individual selves, but also as the country as a whole. I wish you all a very good evening.